She didn't notice me at first, not while her hand brushed his sleeve, not while she whispered something in his ear, and especially not while she laughed like she was 17 again. But I noticed everything. I noticed the way her back arched just slightly when she was around him, how her eyes sparkled in that way they used to when she still made playlists for me on Sundays. I noticed how her wine glass sat untouched on the table, because his attention was intoxicating enough. What I didn't notice was how far gone she already was. The bar smelled like citrus and expensive betrayal. The music thumped somewhere in the background, just enough to blur the outlines of words, but not intentions. That's when I slid the ring from my finger, not angrily, not theatrically, and placed it gently on the edge of their table, between the candlelight and the coaster. No one else saw. No one but her. She turned her head just slightly, probably looking for the server, or maybe reaching for her bag, and froze. Her eyes landed on the ring like it was a gun. Everything about her changed in half a breath. Gone was the laughter. Gone was the glow. All that was left was this strange, raw panic on her face, the kind that makes a person look like they're waking up in a burning house and realizing too late who started the fire. She mouthed something. I think it was my name. I didn't stay long enough to confirm. 2 steps. 3. Past the couple arguing over trivia, past the bartender wiping a martini glass that would never be clean enough, past whatever life I thought we had left. I walked out into the cold. Not metaphorical cold. Actual cold. October wind. Parking lot gravel. The kind of night air that slices through your shirt and leaves you wondering if the last few years were just a long, elaborate prank you forgot the punchline to. My car keys slipped in my hand. My breath fogged up in front of me like I was breathing out lies. And yet, no one followed. Not her. Not him. No frantic footsteps. No apologies. Only the sound of my own engine turning over, and the realization that some goodbyes don't echo. They just disappear like fog on a windshield. And that's exactly how she left me. Without a sound. The parking lot was nearly empty, save for 2 rusted-out sedans and a food delivery guy cursing at his GPS. I sat in the driver's seat with the engine running, but I didn't shift into reverse. Just sat there, staring at the reflection of the neon sign in my windshield. The word Bloom, flickering in red and white like it had no idea it was the setting for something dying. I didn't cry. I wasn't angry either. I just felt disconnected. Like I had just watched my own life from outside a glass wall, powerless to stop any of it. The ring was gone now. My finger felt too light. Like I'd lost a limb, but still expected it to itch. I was about to leave when the passenger door opened. For a second, just a second, I thought it was her. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted her to chase me. Maybe I wanted her to scream my name and say she was sorry. But it wasn't her. It was her best friend, Mina. Drive, she said, sliding in and slamming the door behind her. I blinked. What? Drive. Please. I pulled out of the lot without thinking. My hands moved on instinct, but my mind was racing. Mina wasn't the dramatic type. She was measured, cautious, the kind of woman who read every contract twice and wrote out grocery lists in order of aisle numbers. But right now, she looked like she'd seen something that shattered her entirely. We drove in silence for a few blocks before she finally spoke. You need to know, she said. It's not just tonight. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. What do you mean? She looked out the window like she was trying to escape through it. Silas. Him. It's been going on for months. I didn't say anything because I thought maybe it would fizzle out. Maybe it was emotional and nothing physical. But I was wrong. I saw the hotel receipts. And I know she used your birthday weekend to go away with him. I almost ran a red light. My mouth went dry. My heart didn't sink. It sank again. I thought placing the ring down was the lowest moment. But betrayal has a way of showing you new levels you didn't know existed. She told me you were too predictable. Mina continued, her voice cracking. That you'd never leave no matter what she did. That you'd understand because you're soft. I didn't say anything. Not because I was processing. Because I'd already known. Somewhere deep inside, I'd felt the truth dragging behind every late night, every fake smile, every skipped dinner she blamed on work. But I buried it beneath love. Or fear. Or both. Mina pulled something from her purse, a folded piece of paper, and handed it to me. This is the name of the hotel. The one they go to. Room 614. She doesn't even use a fake name. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, voice shaking. She hesitated, then said something I'll never forget. Because she told Silas tonight she's done hiding, that she's going to end things with you next week. But you already ended it for her, and she doesn't know it yet. I pulled into a gas station, cut the engine, and just stared at the dashboard. Mina got out without saying goodbye. The door closed softly, but her words stayed behind like ghosts in my ears. Room 614. Birthday weekend. Too predictable. I didn't go home that night. And the next morning, I made a plan. Not to get revenge, but to make sure she finally saw the version of me she never thought existed. By morning, the guilt I thought I'd feel never showed up. Instead, there was a calmness. A quiet that didn't feel like peace, but something heavier. Like I was at the bottom of a lake and the surface had finally stopped rippling. No more guessing. No more waiting for confessions that never came. All that was left was clarity. A kind of numb understanding. I'd been erased long ago, and now I was just catching up to the deletion. I didn't text her. Didn't answer the one-word message she sent at 3:42 a.m. Seriously? No punctuation. No apology. Just that single word that said everything about how she viewed herself and me. I wasn't serious enough. I wasn't a threat. I wasn't someone you feared losing. I was wallpaper. But not today. Around noon, I drove out to the Bay Ridge Inn, a boutique hotel she'd once raved about for its character and Instagrammable bathrooms. I remembered it because it's where we were supposed to spend our anniversary 3 years ago, before she got sick and canceled last minute. Now I knew she'd probably just rescheduled, with someone else. The parking lot was half full. The air smelled like damp leaves and garden mulch. I sat in the car watching couples check in and out, suitcases wheeling across uneven pavement. Eventually I went inside. The same lavender scent hung in the air. Same fake fireplace on the lobby screen. But this time, I wasn't there for a romantic weekend. I was there for documentation. "Hi," I said to the clerk, sliding my ID across the counter. "I believe I have a reservation under Corbin latch." The clerk smiled and tapped at her keyboard. "Room 614. It's a recurring monthly weekend booking. Paid in full through your card on file." My jaw didn't tighten. My fingers didn't clench. I just nodded like she was reading off a grocery list. "Would you like a new key printed?" "Yes, please." She slid the card to me with a chipper. "Enjoy your stay," as if she hadn't just confirmed I'd been financially underwriting my own humiliation. The elevator was slow. The hallway smelled like cinnamon. I kept expecting to hear her laugh behind one of the doors. Room 614 was near the end of the corridor. I stood outside it for longer than I meant to. I didn't knock. I just slid the key in and opened it. Empty. For now. The room looked staged. Pillows fluffed. Champagne bucket set by the corner. Silk robe on the chair. Everything prepped for romance that had nothing to do with me. I walked in, careful not to touch anything. I wasn't here to destroy. I wasn't here to scream. That's the thing they never expect. The quiet revenge. The kind that doesn't yell but documents. I took out my phone. Every item in the room. Every receipt in the trash. Every personalized note from the hotel staff signed. "Welcome back, Miss Everly." I took pictures of the calendar reminder on the nightstand screen. Silas, 4 p.m. arrival, red heart. I took pictures of her toothbrush, the overnight bag hidden beneath the bathroom sink, the second key card tucked into the inside zipper pouch. But the part that sealed it wasn't in the room. It was the front desk's checkout summary. I returned to the lobby pretending I'd left something behind during last week's stay. The clerk kindly printed me the guest folio from the past 4 weekends. Same room. Same name. Same card. Different guest listed under additional occupant every time. Silas Heller. She didn't even try to cover her tracks. She didn't need to. Because in her mind, I wasn't capable of doing anything about it. Back at my car, I sat quietly for a moment. Not to think. Not to breathe. But to plan. I wasn't going to confront her. I was going to hand her the truth. Neatly folded, impossible to deny. And then I'd walk away before she could twist it. Because she didn't deserve a fight. She deserved the silence of knowing she lost me before she even realized I was watching. 3 days passed. I didn't bring up the hotel. I didn't mention the texts. I didn't breathe a word about room 614. I let her exist in her fiction, playacting the role of devoted wife in a household where trust had already been cremated. She must have thought I was sulking. Maybe she figured I was too fragile to confront her, or too self-absorbed to notice. That's how far gone she was. She mistook my silence for ignorance. But silence is never empty. Sometimes it's just the sound of a storm loading its weight. Everly's focus had shifted to the fundraiser. The big one. The one she'd been planning with her firm for over 6 months. It was some winter night gala benefiting pediatric cancer research. A noble cause, yes, but also the kind of event where image was everything. Donors, executives, photographers. She had her speech memorized 2 weeks early and bought her dress 3 months in advance. I remember because it arrived in a box with tissue paper and a note that said, "You're going to own the room, Ev." I never asked who the note was from. She asked if I'd still be attending. I smiled. Of course. I wouldn't miss it. She paused. Just slightly. Her eyes scanned my face like she was trying to locate a landmine, but couldn't spot the pressure plate. Then she nodded. Great. It'll mean a lot to me. The night of the gala arrived. She came down the stairs in a white silk dress that shimmered like frost under moonlight. Hair done in soft waves. Perfect makeup. Every detail curated like a final act. You look beautiful, I said. She gave me a practice smile, the kind you flash at polite strangers. Thanks. You clean up nice, too. We drove in silence. Not tense. Not angry. Just hollow. Like we were coworkers sharing a car to a company event neither of us believed in anymore. The venue was ridiculous. Glass chandeliers, rented orchids, a chocolate fountain in the shape of a snowflake. She floated through the room like royalty, charming donors, complimenting wives, posing for photos with fake-laughing coworkers. And then I saw him. Silas. Across the room, dressed in a black velvet blazer and the smirk of a man who never had to try hard for anything. He wasn't standing beside her. That would have been too obvious. No, he hovered near the bar, laughing with another team from her firm. But his eyes kept drifting toward her like gravity was a choice he made. They had a system. He wouldn't approach unless I left her side. I didn't. Not until it was time for her speech. As the MC introduced her, Everly stepped toward the podium, cue cards in hand. The spotlight fell on her, and I saw it. The way she stood taller. Straighter. Like this was her true home. Not the house we shared. Not the dinners. Not the late-night conversations we used to have. No, she belonged here, in a room full of powerful people who knew her by title, not by heart. She began with a joke. Something about her childhood obsession with snow globes and how life doesn't come with glass walls to protect the beauty inside. It landed well. The room laughed. She smiled. And that's when I moved. I walked quietly through the crowd. Not to cause a scene, but to finish what I'd started. Near the front row sat the donation table, lined with envelopes and cards from sponsors, including a small display of thank you gifts. Without drawing attention, I placed a sealed manila envelope dead center, under her nameplate. Inside, printouts, photos from room 614, hotel invoices, the calendar reminder with Silas' name and heart emoji, screenshots of her texts, a copy of the guest folio. Every lie, neatly stapled, chronologically arranged. No commentary, no rage, just facts. By the time she finished her speech, the envelope would be waiting, quietly, patiently. I didn't stay for the applause. I didn't need to. I left before she even looked in my direction. That night, I didn't go home, and I turned off my phone. Because the performance was over. Now it was her turn to stand alone under the spotlight. I didn't sleep that night. Not out of regret. Not even out of satisfaction. It was something else, like my nervous system hadn't caught up with the decision I made. Like I was hovering just above my body, watching it from outside, waiting to see if it would shatter or evolve. At 2:14 a.m., my phone buzzed once. A voicemail. No call. Just a message left like a breadcrumb. I played it twice before realizing she hadn't said a word. It was just breathing. Ragged. Controlled. Trying not to shake. I didn't respond. By morning, there were 6 more calls, 2 texts, and a message from her assistant asking if I could come by the office because Everly's had a bit of a tough day and could use someone in her corner. That part made me laugh. In her corner. I'd lived in her corner for 3 years. Tucked away behind convenience and patience and emotional labor she never noticed. I was the coat rack where she hung her guilt before going out. And now, apparently, she wanted me back, if only to plug the hole before the leak became visible. I spent the day clearing my half of the closet. I wasn't doing it out of anger. I just didn't want her to twist the narrative later and say I ghosted her or left everything in chaos. No, I wanted my absence to be clean, documented, intentional. Every drawer I closed felt like a soft clap at the funeral of a man I used to be. Around 6 p.m., I heard the front door open. She wasn't supposed to be back yet. Her heels hit the floor like gunshots. Fast. Unsteady. She didn't call my name. Just walked room to room like she was looking for something she already feared wasn't there. When she finally found me in the bedroom, zipping up the last suitcase, she froze. Her face looked different. Not devastated. Not tear-streaked. Calm. But in that eerie, calculating kind of way. Like a person preparing a final chess move, not a heartfelt apology. You made your point, she said quietly. I didn't answer. She stepped closer, still in that stupid white dress from the gala, like she hadn't had time to change, or maybe didn't care. You humiliated me in front of everyone. You sabotaged my night. I laughed under my breath. Your night? You mean the one I paid for? She flinched. Just for a second. You think I'm a monster now, but you have no idea how hard it's been. Feeling unseen, unheard, trapped. I zipped the suitcase. Then why didn't you leave? She blinked. Because I didn't want to be the bad guy. You didn't want to look like the bad guy, I corrected. Big difference. She started pacing, hands in her hair like she was rehearsing a monologue. You think this is all so simple, Corbin. But you pulled that stunt knowing exactly what it would cost me. I could lose my job. My board seat. Do you realize the donors are talking about ethics now? That this could derail everything I've built? I stood there, stunned, not because she was panicking, but because even now, after everything, she wasn't crying over losing me. She was crying over losing her reputation. You didn't lose me last night, I said. You lost me months ago. I just finally caught up. She stopped moving. I'm not going to fight you, I added. I won't blast this on social media. I won't ruin your name. I don't need to. You're going to do that all by yourself. Her eyes narrowed. You think you're so clever. No. I just finally learned how to stop apologizing for being honest. I wheeled the suitcase past her. She didn't move. Just watched me walk down the hallway toward the door. But just before I reached it, she called out, soft, almost fragile. Do you love him? I turned. She shook her head, blinking fast. I meant, do you love him enough to burn down everything just to prove a point? That's when I realized something chilling. She thought I was having an affair with Mina, the fundraiser, the timing, Mina handing me the proof. It all lined up in Everly's twisted mind, but the wrong way. And she didn't seem hurt about it. She seemed relieved. Because if I was also unfaithful, then she wasn't the villain. She was just even. I didn't correct her. I just opened the door, looked back once, and said, you don't get to decide how the truth lands, Everly. You only get to live with where it lands. Then I closed it behind me and didn't look back. 2 days after I left, I saw her again, but not in person. She posted a public letter to LinkedIn. Yes, LinkedIn. She titled it, When Personal Pain Meets Public Pressure. 1,000 carefully crafted words dressed in passive voice and polished guilt. The tone was just vague enough to avoid legal fallout, just emotional enough to paint herself as a woman navigating betrayal, stress, and public scrutiny with grace. She never used my name, never mentioned Silas, but the subtext was radioactive. According to her, she had struggled silently for months in a one-sided marriage, had finally reached a breaking point, and then had the misfortune of being publicly blindsided by a smear campaign from someone who once claimed to love her. She ended it with some trite, saccharine line about healing out loud and thanking those who continue to see the real me. The comments flooded in fast. Co-workers, clients, strangers who only knew her by her job title and headshot. All of them giving the digital equivalent of warm hugs and organic tea. So brave. Sending love during this difficult time. Men are intimidated by powerful women. And then I saw it. Silas had liked the post. Not commented, just liked. Like a quiet pat on the back. A handshake in the shadows. For a second, I almost replied. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I had the screenshots, the invoices, the proof. I could have dropped everything in the comments like a bomb and walked away. But I didn't. Because the game she was playing? It required a reaction. She needed me to fight back, to get angry, to shout into the void, because that would prove her right. That I was unstable, petty, emotional, a man scorned, lashing out. Instead, I called her company's HR office. Not anonymously, not with malice, just with facts. I let them know I'd like to submit a formal conflict of interest complaint. That I had documentation showing an ongoing, undisclosed relationship between their director of strategic growth and a creative subcontractor she directly funneled contracts to, without reporting it. The voice on the line went quiet. Would you be willing to provide documentation? They asked. I already had the email drafted. All attachments included. Timestamped. No exaggeration. No embellishment. Just the truth she never thought anyone would bother to compile. I hit send before they finished speaking. By 2 p.m., her LinkedIn post had been edited. She removed the phrase smear campaign and changed the word betrayal to disappointment. By 3:30, I received an automatic reply from her work email. Everly V. is currently out of office on a personal leave of absence. And by 5 p.m., I got a message I never expected. From Silas. He messaged me directly. No preamble. No fake politeness. Just one line. You happy now? I stared at it for a long time. The audacity. The arrogance. But mostly the stupidity. Because he still thought this was about winning. Still thought this was a power play. He didn't understand that I hadn't come to destroy them. I had simply stopped protecting them. And without that shield, everything they built on lies was collapsing under its own weight. I didn't respond to Silas. Not because I didn't have the words, but because the real answer was already scheduled to go live at 8 a.m. the next morning. A carefully timed letter sent to the gala's largest donor, who also happened to be Everly's personal mentor. Subject line, you deserve the full story. The email I sent to Everly's mentor hit harder than I expected. Not because I got a response, he never replied directly, but because within 24 hours, Everly's mask started to crack in ways that even she couldn't style around. It was late afternoon when I got a text from my mother, of all people. Why is Everly crying in my living room? I nearly dropped my phone. Apparently, she'd shown up uninvited, still dressed like a TED Talk speaker. High-waisted slacks, blazer, heels. Except this time, her eyeliner was smudged and her voice was trembling. She told my mom she was terrified she was losing everything and didn't know who to trust anymore. That was rich. My mom didn't say much to her, just let her sit, let her talk, didn't offer coffee or advice. Then she quietly told her that trust isn't something you get to miss only after you bury it. That night, I got another voicemail. This time she spoke. But it wasn't rage. It wasn't tears. It was something far more dangerous. Sweetness. Hey, Corbin. I don't know if this is even the right move, but I feel like maybe we should talk. I've been reflecting. I think I was projecting a lot of my own unhappiness onto you. That's not fair. I never gave you enough credit for how much you carried. I see that now. I really do. Can we meet? No mention of Silas. No apology for lying. Just a general blanket of I've been thinking, wrapped in nostalgia and regret, but calculated, like everything else she did. She didn't want forgiveness. She wanted leverage, damage control, but the real twist didn't come from her. It came from Mina. She showed up at my temporary apartment unannounced. No text, no warning, holding a flash drive and looking like she hadn't slept since the gala. I wasn't going to get involved, she said. But I think you should know. She's planning something. I let her in. We sat across from each other at my kitchen table, two people who had been pulled into the same war by different sins. She slid the flash drive across to me like it was radioactive. It's from the Office network. I wasn't snooping, I swear. I was running backup archives and saw her email history with Silas, stuff she must have thought she deleted. I plugged it into my laptop. At first, I didn't even understand what I was reading. The emails weren't about the affair. They were about me. 6 weeks before the fundraiser, Everly had begun drafting a legal contingency plan. Not divorce papers, something worse. A documented narrative that painted me as emotionally unstable, difficult to live with, aggressively paranoid, and prone to isolation and depressive episodes. Her goal, it seemed, was to pre-frame a separation story that would protect her image and career. She'd planned to leave me eventually, but only after she'd secured enough sympathy, enough public support, enough airtight messaging to spin it as a painful but necessary step in reclaiming her personal truth. I was never supposed to know. She had already picked the lawyer, had already sent inquiries to a crisis PR firm, had already drafted her statement in notes on her phone. And the most disturbing part? One of the emails said, "We'll wait until after the gala. Once he's out of the way, I'll move into phase 2. Out of the way. I closed the laptop slowly. My stomach felt hollow. Mina watched me, unsure what to say. I didn't want to believe it at first. I thought maybe it was just CYA stuff. But after the envelope, after the fallout, I think she's spiraling. And cornered people do stupid things. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. The woman I married hadn't just been cheating. She had been architecting my erasure. In public. In legal terms. In memory. I wasn't just trying to heal now. I was trying to survive someone who saw love as a ladder and me as the first rung she had to step on. And yet, even then, I wasn't sure how I wanted it to end. Not with revenge. Not with shouting. But with precision. Because the only thing more powerful than retaliation is exposure. Not the messy kind. The silent kind. The kind where the truth becomes undeniable because it comes not from me, but from her own words. And now, I had the flash drive. I had everything. The email to the donor did more than I expected. It didn't just rattle Everly's inner circle. It shifted it. Slowly, quietly, people began stepping back from her. Colleagues didn't reply to her checking-in messages. Her mentor postponed meetings. Her assistant quit with a single-line resignation. I need to work with people I believe in. She didn't call me again. Not once. But she didn't have to. I could feel her panic in the air, drifting through mutual connections and unread emails. Silas vanished too. Apparently, his creative consultancy lost its retainer with the firm after my report. His social pages went dark. Maybe he was hiding. Maybe he finally realized that being someone else's dirty little secret wasn't worth the thrill. Either way, I never saw him again. And honestly, I didn't care. Because the story wasn't about him anymore. It never really was. This entire time, I thought the worst part was the betrayal. The nights alone. The lies. The quiet hotel rooms. But the real wound wasn't any of those things. It was how much of myself I gave away while trying to prove I was enough for someone who already made up her mind. And yet, now that it was all exposed, I didn't feel broken. I felt free. 1 month later, I moved into a new apartment across town. Smaller. Simpler. But mine. No ghost memories in the walls. No staged photos on the shelves. Just clean space and new beginnings. I started sleeping again. Deeply. Without dreams. I went back to therapy. Not to vent, but to rebuild. And one day, I ran into someone I never thought I'd see again. Mina, outside a bookstore. No dramatics. No heavy music playing. Just two people who had survived the same storm in different boats. We got coffee. Then lunch. Then, slowly, without pressure, we just kept showing up for each other. Not as trauma bonds. Not as wounded birds. But as whole people who finally realized what it feels like to be seen. The last time I saw Everly was by accident, 6 months later, at a gallery opening downtown. She was there with someone new. I don't know if it was romantic or not, and I didn't need to know. We locked eyes for a second. She gave a small, stiff smile. I nodded once, then turned away. Not out of spite, not out of pain, but because I had nothing left to prove to her. She had her story. I had mine. But mine didn't end with betrayal. It ended with peace. And after everything, that was enough.